A human engineer inherits the galaxy's largest warship. What happens next stuns everyone. Elias Cade had never wanted to be important. He had never wanted to command fleets, lead armies, or inherit anything more complicated than a simple set of tools. Yet here he was, standing on the observation deck of the Celestial Anvil, the galaxy's largest warship, and staring at systems he didn't fully understand. Every panel blinked with information, every screen screamed warnings, and the ship itself hummed like a living being aware of its new master. He pinched the bridge of his nose and let out a long, quiet sigh. Engineers like him were used to fixing things quietly in the background, not standing at the center of history. But the inheritance had been official. According to an ancient multi-species protocol, the death of the warship's last commander meant the vessel passed to the individual most closely tied to its systems. And somehow, that was him. The news had spread like fire. Across the galaxy, diplomats, admirals, and warlords scoffed. A human? An engineer? Command of the Celestial Anvil, a warship capable of destroying entire fleets and reshaping battlefields, had fallen into human hands. Laughter had followed the announcement, along with disbelief and outright insults. Humans don't command warships, they said. Humans barely survive space travel. Elias did not correct them. He merely looked around the bridge, taking in the scale of the ship. The ceilings were impossibly high, the consoles endless, and the corridors stretched like veins across a living organism. He had repaired some of the smaller subsystems years ago when the warship had been idle and ignored, but nothing could have prepared him for this. "Sir," said a calm, metallic voice. Elias jumped slightly. It was the ship's AI, which had finally recognized him as its commander. "Welcome, Master Cade. All primary and secondary systems are operational. However, I must warn you that the ship's battle readiness is below optimal levels for active engagement."
Elias rubbed his eyes. "I'm not sure I want to fight anything," he admitted.
"I just want to understand it first." The AI's tone remained neutral. "Understood. May I recommend system diagnostics and crew familiarization exercises?"
He nodded slowly.
"Yes. Let's do that." It was the first real command he had ever given, and it felt strange, almost alien. He walked across the bridge, touching the panels, feeling the vibrations of the ship beneath his feet. Years of experience with smaller ships and mechanical systems gave him a confidence that surprised him. He could understand this warship if he approached it like any complex machine, one subsystem at a time. Meanwhile, alien fleets in distant sectors were watching. Reports from scouts flooded in. "The human is aboard," one said. "He does not appear to be a warrior. This is amusing." Another responded, "This is a mistake. Surely the inheritance protocol must have erred. A human cannot command this vessel." Elias, in the meantime, was discovering quirks that no one else had noticed. Systems long thought obsolete responded to his touch. Power loops that had been ignored for centuries hummed to life. He found corridors that had been locked for decades, and in them, tools and spare parts that could improve efficiency. Most importantly, the AI seemed more cooperative with him than it had with the last commander, a fact that Elias noted quietly but with a growing sense of wonder.
Days passed and the crew began to adjust.
Many were aliens, species with bodies and minds far beyond human understanding. They were skeptical at first, watching the human walk the decks as if he belonged, touching panels, making notes, giving suggestions. Elias did not demand obedience. He asked questions. He examined their reports. He listened. It was strange to the crew, who were used to commanders barking orders or testing loyalty with threats. "Human logic is unusual," muttered Lieutenant Vierna, a tall, crystalline being with reflective skin. She had been serving aboard the Celestial Anvil for decades and had seen more rulers come and go than she cared to count. Yet there was something in Elias that made her pause. Unlike others, he did not command through fear or authority. He commanded through understanding. Elias noticed inefficiencies immediately. Power routing was suboptimal. Communication systems were slow. and the ship's response times in emergency simulations lagged behind newer warships. But no one had bothered to fix these issues. They were improvements the previous commanders thought unnecessary. Elias smiled quietly to himself. A human may not be the strongest, fastest, or largest species, but he knew one thing better than almost anyone in the galaxy: how to fix what no one else can see. One night as Elias walked through the maintenance tunnels, he heard whispers among the crew.
They say he is human, one alien murmured.
Do you think he knows what he is doing? Another replied, he has no experience commanding a warship of this size. He will fail. He didn't confront them. He didn't need to. Their doubt fueled him. Humans were underestimated across the stars, and he had learned early in life that this underestimation was a weapon if used carefully. Over the next weeks, Elias implemented subtle changes. He reorganized the ship's internal systems for efficiency, rerouted power to critical sectors, and restored long-dormant functions that had been forgotten by centuries of neglect. He listened to the AI, asked for recommendations, and then tested improvements. Crew members began to notice changes. Lights were brighter where they were needed, supplies arrived faster, and long corridors that had been dangerous and inefficient suddenly seemed navigable. Word of these changes spread. The alien fleets that had mocked him at first began to pay attention. Reports described small but unusual victories in simulations, where the celestial anvil responded with unexpected speed and accuracy. Perhaps the human is not a fool, one admiral said, his voice tinged with cautious respect. One evening, as Elias studied a holographic map of star systems, the AI interrupted him. Master Cade, sensors indicate a nearby fleet approaching. They are heavily armed and likely seeking to test your capabilities. He had been expecting this moment. The galaxy would not simply allow a human to inherit the largest warship without challenge. Show me their trajectory, he said calmly. I want to see what they are really capable of. The holographic display flickered and showed a formation of warships larger than any fleet Elias had ever seen. Alien ships, sleek and deadly, glinted in the void. Every commander would have panicked. Every commander, except one who understood systems, leverage, and opportunity. Elias tapped the console. Prepare the shields, check the engines, and... He hesitated. Let's make this interesting. We're not going to fight like they expect. The crew looked at him in confusion. Sir, Lieutenant Verna asked. We're going to use the ship the way it was meant to be used, Elias said. Not to destroy, but to protect and outmaneuver. Trust me. The AI responded almost with a hint of something like pride. Understood, Master Cade. Engaging unconventional defensive protocols. As the celestial anvil floated into position, Elias felt something he had never felt before. Clarity. Every warning light, every blinking console, every alien voice aboard the ship became part of a larger picture. He did not see a machine. He saw a living system. And for the first time, he realized why he had been chosen. Humans were underestimated for their physical limitations, but not for their ingenuity. They were dismissed for their size and strength, but not for their ability to think differently. In a galaxy that expected warships to fight with brute force, Elias understood one simple truth. The mind could be more powerful than the deadliest weapon. As the first enemy ship appeared on sensors, Elias smiled faintly. This was only the beginning. And somewhere in the far reaches of the galaxy, alien commanders began to whisper a warning that no one could have anticipated. The human may have inherited the largest warship, but he had also inherited the greatest weapon of all, his mind. The stars stretched out before him, endless and full of possibilities. And for the first time, Elias Cadet felt ready to prove that humans were more than survivors. They were innovators, leaders, and perhaps the galaxy's most unexpected force. The approaching fleet loomed on the celestial anvil's sensors, a shadowy formation of sleek alien warships that dwarfed most vessels Elias had ever seen. Each one glinted with weapons of unimaginable power, and every admiral in the galaxy would have felt a shiver at their sight. But Elias Cade, human engineer and reluctant commander, only studied the readings with quiet curiosity. Status report, he said to the ship's AI. his fingers tracing lightly over the holographic controls. "All enemy vessels are fully armed," the AI replied. "Conventional engagement will result in overwhelming damage. Probability of survival under standard protocols, 17.3%. Elias raised an eyebrow. "And under unconventional protocols?" The AI hesitated for a fraction of a second. "Probability unknown. No previous commander has attempted such measures."
"Then we'll be the first," Elias said simply.
The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. A human, they realized, was about to face a fleet that had ended wars with ease, and he wasn't following the rules. Elias moved to the central console and activated the auxiliary systems he had repaired in secret over the past weeks. Hidden power loops, long dormant shields, and experimental energy reroutes hummed to life, unseen by alien eyes. The ship seemed to respond to him, almost as if it understood that its new master thought differently. Lieutenant Virna's crystalline form reflected the dim light of the bridge. "Sir, what exactly is your plan?" Elias smiled faintly. "We're going to do what no one expects. We're going to defend ourselves without fighting like they expect." The aliens in the approaching fleet assumed the human would panic or engage in a reckless attack. Their sensors indicated Celestial Anvil was active, but the readings were confusing. Shields fluctuated in strange patterns. Engines powered up inconsistently, and the ship's movements seemed unpredictable. To them, it was chaos. Elias moved methodically, rerouting energy from non-essential systems to the main engines, reinforcing shields around key sectors, and activating long-forgotten defensive arrays. But the most unusual change was subtle. He reorganized the crew's workflow. Every alien officer who had ever followed rigid protocol was now asked to suggest improvements. Every system operator had freedom to experiment within limits. The bridge became a hive of coordinated ingenuity rather than rigid obedience. Hours passed. The enemy fleet edged closer, expecting fear, expecting hesitation, expecting the human to make a mistake. They waited for the Celestial Anvil to fire its massive weapons. Nothing happened. Then the first probe came. A small ship darted forward, testing defenses.
Elias studied the readings. Deflectors to pattern 7.
Power modulation at 1.8 terawatts. Neutralized without damage. The probe's sensors glowed bright, then flickered. Its engines cut off for a moment, systems scrambled, and it drifted harmlessly away. The enemy fleet scanned frantically. "Impossible," one commander hissed. "How?" He continued working. Every probe, every scout, every attempt to intimidate the Celestial Anvil met with subtle, precise countermeasures. Energy fields diverted attacks, engines repositioned the ship before missiles could lock on, and enemy weapons misfired, not because of superior firepower, but because the human understood the system better than anyone. "Sir," Virna whispered, her voice tinged with awe. "They're confused. They can't predict us."
Good, Elias replied.
Confusion is part of strategy. He began to experiment further. The ship's energy cores had capabilities beyond what any commander had attempted. By rerouting power dynamically, he could create temporary distortions in space around the vessel. Shields that bent enemy beams, engines that moved the ship unpredictably, and communication interference that scrambled targeting data. The fleet's confidence crumbled. No attack hit the ship, and yet Elias had not fired a single shot offensively. In the enemy command ship, panic spread. "What is that human doing?" an admiral roared. "The Celestial Anvil isn't fighting, it's changing the battlefield itself." The bridge crew watched Elias calmly. He was not exhilarated or arrogant. He was focused, precise, and patient. Every adjustment he made built upon the previous one. The humans had a saying he liked: measure twice, cut once. He applied it not to carpentry, but to galactic warfare. Hours turned into a tense night. Sensors flickered as enemy weapons recalibrated. Fleets tried coordinated attacks, yet each attempt was countered subtly, efficiently, and without unnecessary destruction. Crew members whispered among themselves. They had expected fear, panic, or failure. Instead, they witnessed a human turning a warship into a dance of ingenuity. "Sir," Verna said, pointing at the tactical display, "they're retreating." Elias watched the enemy fleet drift back. "Not retreating," he corrected. "They're confused. They don't understand what they faced. That gives us leverage." The human mind, underestimated across countless star systems, had outmaneuvered fleets designed to crush entire planets. Alien admirals sent messages demanding explanations. "We demand a direct engagement," one said. "Explain your tactics." Elias considered replying. Then he smiled faintly.
Explain.
"There's nothing to explain. We defend, we observe, we adapt. That is what humans do." Word of the celestial anvil's performance spread quickly. Reports painted a strange image. A massive warship, larger than any other, commanded by a human, that had neutralized an entire fleet without firing a single destructive shot. Observers were stunned. Where they had expected panic, they found composure. Where they had expected brute force, they found strategy. Elias did not stop there. He spent days improving systems, adjusting workflows, and teaching crew members to think beyond traditional tactics. Aliens who had once doubted humans began to admire them. They realized that humans were not the strongest or fastest, but they were the most unpredictable, creative, and willing to experiment. Meanwhile, the AI continued to assist, providing calculations, predictions, and historical data. But even the AI seemed to adapt under Elias's command. Systems that had once been passive or hidden now responded actively to his commands. The ship had become more than a weapon. It had become a partner. One evening, Elias stood on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. He had won the first test, but he knew it was only the beginning. The galaxy would not stop trying to challenge him. Fleets would come. Diplomats would question him. Other species would attempt to reclaim the warship. But he felt ready, not because of firepower, not because of size, but because of understanding. A knock on the deck's glass door drew his attention. Virna entered, her expression serious. "Sir, the Council of Warships is convening. They are sending envoys to demand your presence." "Let them come. We will show them the same thing we did to the fleet: calm, strategy, and patience." For the first time, he allowed himself a small smile. Humans had been underestimated for centuries. Now, they would be remembered. Not for brute strength, but for brilliance. And somewhere, in the deep reaches of the galaxy, alien leaders whispered warnings to one another. The human commander of the Celestial Anvil was unlike any opponent they had faced. He did not play by the rules, he did not fight with overwhelming force, and he did not seek glory. Yet every move he made left their best strategies in ruins. Elias had inherited a warship, but more importantly, he had inherited something the galaxy had never anticipated: the power of human ingenuity. As the celestial anvil drifted through the stars, silent and immense, it became clear to every observer strength was not measured in weapons alone. It was measured in mind, in creativity, in the ability to see what others could not. And Elias Cade, a human engineer, was about to teach the galaxy the full meaning of that lesson. The news of the human commander spread like wildfire. Across the galaxy, alien leaders whispered in disbelief. A single human had taken control of the Celestial Anvil, the largest warship ever built, and had neutralized a fleet without firing a single shot. But admiration was mixed with fear. Humans were unpredictable, and unpredictability in a weapon this powerful was dangerous. The first official response came from the Council of Systems, a coalition of the galaxy's most powerful species. They issued a direct challenge. Not just one fleet, but several, coordinated to intercept the Celestial Anvil in a location near the Andromeda Quadrant. Their goal was clear: test the human, and if necessary, remove him by force. Elias received the news calmly. "Multiple fleets," he murmured to himself, tracing their projected paths on the tactical display. "Interesting." Lieutenant Verna raised an eyebrow. "Sir, they're sending more than we've ever faced. Even with the ship's capabilities, we could be overwhelmed." Elias smiled faintly. That's why we'll think differently. Remember, they expect chaos, confusion, and fear. We'll give them something else." The bridge hummed with quiet preparation. Crew members from dozens of species moved efficiently, following Elias's instructions to optimize every subsystem. Shields were realigned for maximum coverage, engines tuned for unpredictable maneuvers, and communication lines reinforced to prevent interception. Yet Elias was not satisfied with ordinary measures. He activated the warship's hidden protocols. These systems had been dormant for centuries, designed to control battlefield space rather than destroy ships. Long-range tractor fields, energy harmonics, and adaptive spatial shields came online. Most officers did not understand them fully, but Elias had studied their schematics in secret. This was the true power of the Celestial Anvil, and no previous commander had dared to use it. When the fleets appeared on sensors, the galaxy's finest warriors felt certain victory. The human would panic. The warship would crumble under coordinated fire. But the Celestial Anvil was already moving in ways no one could predict. Its engines adjusted for gravitational anomalies, its shields bent energy beams, and its tractor fields subtly altered the course of approaching enemy ships. Elias gave simple, precise instructions. Redirect auxiliary power to the forward hull. Activate harmonic oscillators at 0.7 terawatts. Monitor enemy response and adjust. The human mind his crew realized was working like a living computer. Every adjustment was calculated, every response anticipated, yet nothing was reckless. For hours, the battle raged, not with explosions or fire, but with strategy and misdirection. Enemy weapons missed by meters, engines strained under strange gravitational shifts, and communications scrambled as the Celestial Anvil manipulated the battlefield itself. On the enemy command ship, panic spread.
"What is this human doing?" an admiral shouted. "The ship, it's
controlling space itself." Elias noticed a curious pattern. The fleets were organized for maximum destruction, but lacked flexibility. Each species relied on predictable tactics. He exploited this perfectly. By creating temporary energy fields, he could isolate groups of enemy ships, forcing them into stalemate. No one was destroyed, but their formation collapsed. They tried to retreat, only to be nudged back into carefully controlled positions by the Celestial Anvil's tractor fields. "Sir," Virna said quietly, "they're completely trapped."
"And they don't even realize it." "Exactly," Elias replied.
"They fight, thinking they have control, but they're dancing to our rhythm." Hours passed. The human commander, the engineer, was proving that brute strength was unnecessary. It was his understanding of systems, space, and strategy that won the day. Alien commanders were forced to send messages begging for negotiation. We cannot defeat this vessel with conventional methods," one admitted. "We request a truce." Elias leaned back, tired, but satisfied. "Prepare the response. Keep it calm. Make it clear we will not attack unless provoked." The response went out. It was simple, yet powerful. Humans did not seek conquest, only balance. The fleets hesitated, and then slowly retreated. The galaxy's greatest warriors were stunned. A human had neutralized them using control and understanding, not firepower. But Elias knew this was only the beginning. He began to examine the ship's deeper systems, hidden sections that no one had ever accessed. As he walked through corridors that had been sealed for centuries, he discovered the true purpose of the Celestial Anvil. It was never meant to be just a warship. It was a mobile safeguard, capable of stabilizing entire star systems. It could prevent planetary disasters, control dangerous energy anomalies, and even manipulate gravitational fields to prevent collisions or destruction. Centuries of commanders had ignored these functions, focusing on battles and conquests. But Elias, human engineer, saw the bigger picture. "This ship is incredible," he murmured. "It's not a weapon. It's a protector." Virna appeared beside him. "You mean it could save worlds?" "Yes," Elias said. "And that is how we'll use it. Not for conquest, not for fear, but to show that humans can lead differently. That power, doesn't need to destroy to be effective. Word of the ship's capabilities leaked slowly. Aliens who had once scoffed now reconsidered. Observers began sending envoys, not to attack, but to learn. "How does a human control the largest warship in the galaxy?" one asked. "How can someone so fragile lead something so immense?" Elias answered simply, "Understanding, observation, and innovation." He taught crew members to look beyond rules, to anticipate problems before they arose, and to treat the ship as a living system rather than a weapon. The galaxy began to change perception. Humans were underestimated for centuries, but now they were seen as more than survivors. They were strategists, innovators, and leaders capable of thinking beyond force. Every fleet that challenged the celestial anvil learned the same lesson. Brute strength could be defeated by clever minds. Weeks passed. Multiple fleets tested the warship, each more sophisticated than the last. Elias did not panic. He did not seek revenge or glory. Instead, he revealed more of the ship's potential. Hidden shields that could protect entire planets, energy fields that could stabilize dying stars, and systems that could safely redirect asteroid collisions. Finally, the Council of Systems sent a formal envoy demanding an audience. They came not with weapons, but with curiosity. "You are a human," the envoy said, "and yet you have mastered a ship none of our finest commanders could control." "How?" Elias smiled. "I listen. I observe. I fix what others ignore. This ship, it has been waiting for someone who thinks differently, someone who does not see power as destruction. Humans have always been underestimated. That is our advantage." The envoy was silent, unsure what to say. For the first time they realized the truth. Strength in the galaxy was not always measured in firepower. It could be measured in mind, in innovation, and in restraint. Verna watched Elias with admiration. "You've changed everything," she said quietly. Elias shook his head. "Not me. Humans, maybe. And this ship. Together we're showing the galaxy a different way. There's still more to do." The celestial anvil drifted through space, silent and immense, no longer just a weapon of war, but a guardian. Aliens whispered of the human who had inherited the greatest warship and turned it into a tool for balance. And somewhere, deep in the command centers of the galaxy's most powerful fleets, fear began to grow. Not because Elias would attack, but because no one could predict what he would do next. He was a human, after all. And humans had a talent the galaxy had long ignored. They could think differently, act unpredictably, and turn the impossible into reality. Elias Kade had inherited a warship, but now he had inherited the responsibility to show the galaxy a better way. The stars stretched before him, endless and full of potential. And for the first time, the galaxy began to understand. Humans were not weak. Humans were brilliant. And the celestial anvil was only the beginning. The galaxy had changed. What began as skepticism and laughter had turned into awe, and now cautious respect. Elias Cade, a human engineer, had inherited the celestial anvil, the largest warship ever built, and in the weeks since he had proven that humans could think in ways no alien commander had anticipated. But Elias did not want war, domination, or glory. He wanted balance. Reports poured in from distant systems. Worlds threatened by rogue fleets, unstable stars, and collapsing moons had received help from the celestial anvil. No one had been destroyed unnecessarily. Systems that had been on the brink of collapse were now stabilized. Entire sectors had been shielded from natural disasters. Aliens who had once mocked humans now wondered if they had misunderstood their potential entirely. Elias stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars. The celestial anvil hummed beneath him like a living being. Its hidden systems, once dormant, now thrummed with activity stabilizing far-off planets and rerouting dangerous energy flows. This was more than a warship. It was a mobile guardian of the galaxy. Lieutenant Virna approached him, her reflective crystalline form glowing softly. "Sir, the Council of Systems has requested a formal assembly. They want to speak directly with you."
Let them come. I think it's time they understand the way humans lead.
The assembly was held in orbit around a neutral star. Representatives from dozens of species arrived in their largest vessels, forming a council that had never been convened in such numbers. They expected intimidation or weapons displays. They found neither. Elias greeted them calmly. "I understand you have questions," he said simply. "I also understand your fear. But this ship and humanity are not here to dominate. We are here to show a different way, one that uses strength to protect, not destroy." Murmurs spread across the council chambers. Aliens whispered to one another. None had expected a human to speak with such confidence, without threat or arrogance, yet with undeniable authority. One admiral stepped forward. "You have taken control of the galaxy's greatest warship and defeated fleets that could have crushed you. Why? What is your goal?" Elias's gaze was steady. "Not to conquer, not to rule. To stabilize, to protect, and to teach that power is most valuable when it prevents war rather than prolongs it. Humans are underestimated for our size, our strength, even our intelligence. But we are adaptable, we innovate, and we lead not by fear but by understanding." The council was silent. Many had expected a threat, a boast, or a demand. Instead, they heard reason. They heard clarity.
The celestial anvil, Elias continued, was built as a weapon, yes.
But its true potential has been ignored for centuries. It can prevent disasters, stabilize systems, and protect civilizations. I intend to use it for that purpose. And I offer its protection to all who abide by a principle simple enough for anyone to understand. Life is valuable, and unnecessary destruction is unacceptable. Some members of the council looked skeptical. Others looked uncertain. A few simply stared, realizing that a human had reshaped their understanding of power. Then a question came. "And what if others try to use the celestial anvil for war?" Elias smiled faintly. "They cannot. The ship's systems are designed to prevent misuse. It cannot be used to destroy recklessly. Every subsystem has checks that even the most powerful fleets cannot bypass. That is the true lesson. Intelligence and innovation are stronger than brute force." The silence in the chamber was almost deafening. Finally, one elder spoke. "You are not like any leader we have known. The galaxy is stunned. What you have done is remarkable. Perhaps humans are more than we realized." Elias did not claim credit. He gestured to the crew, to the systems, to the ship itself. "This is not my doing alone. The crew, the ship, the technology, it is all working together. Humans are capable, but so is cooperation. That is the key." Outside, the celestial anvil moved silently. Systems that had been dormant for centuries now hummed with purpose. Energy fields stabilized nearby planets. Harmonic shields diverted dangerous asteroid clusters. Sensor arrays monitored distant stars for early signs of instability. The galaxy had never seen such coordinated constructive use of power. "Back on the bridge," Virna whispered. "Sir, they are calling you a hero." Elias shook his head. "I am not a hero. Humans do not need to be heroes. We need to think differently. That is enough." The council deliberated for hours. They could not deny the results. They could not dispute the effectiveness. Slowly, they began to formalize a new galactic protocol. One that encouraged humans and other species to lead by strategy, protection, and innovation rather than aggression. Meanwhile, word spread to distant worlds. Populations that had long lived in fear of fleets and wars were reassured. Humans, once dismissed as weak and unimportant, became symbols of ingenuity and leadership. Artists depicted the celestial anvil as a guardian rather than a weapon. Scholars wrote of the human commander who had inherited the galaxy's greatest ship and used it to stabilize, protect, and teach. Elias continued to work quietly. He repaired systems, optimized functions, and mentored his crew. He encouraged aliens to propose improvements, and he listened to ideas even from those species that had once doubted him. The celestial anvil became a school of thought as much as a ship, teaching everyone aboard that thinking differently was more powerful than brute force. Months passed. Conflicts that had simmered for centuries began to resolve peacefully. guided by the presence of the celestial anvil. Dangerous energy anomalies were contained before they could destroy planets. Rogue fleets reconsidered aggressive moves, knowing the human commander could neutralize them without destruction. Elias never sought recognition. He remained focused on the work, on learning, on improving. Yet the galaxy could not ignore him. The name Elias Cade became synonymous with the idea that humans, underestimated for centuries, could achieve what others could not: balance, innovation, and leadership without tyranny. One day, as Elias walked along the observation deck, Virna joined him. The stars stretched endlessly. "Do you ever tire?" she asked. "Not of this," Elias replied. "I tire of nothing when the work matters. We are proving something important, not for glory, but for understanding." "You've stunned the galaxy, sir." "Truly," Elias smiled quietly. "Stunning is not the goal. The goal is to show that humans, and anyone willing to think differently, can create a better way. That is the real achievement." In orbit around distant stars, the celestial anvil floated like a sentinel. Its systems hummed in harmony. Its shields bent starlight, and its engines glided silently. The galaxy watched in awe as a human engineer reshaped history without a single act of unnecessary aggression, and the galaxy finally understood what it had long underestimated: that humans were not merely survivors of the stars. They were innovators, leaders, and guardians. Elias Cade had inherited the largest warship in the galaxy. But what truly stunned everyone was not the size of the ship, the strength of its weapons, or even the fleets it could control. It was the way a human mind had used it. Strength was not measured by destruction. Power was not measured by fear. True mastery came from understanding, ingenuity, and restraint. The celestial anvil had become the symbol of that lesson. And as Elias looked out into the endless cosmos, he knew one truth: humans had only begun to show what they were capable of, and the galaxy would never forget it.